Hello, my name is Epic Bubble. I sometimes go by the name of Simon, and this is a Star Wars story. Let me explain. If you haven't been to the channel before, this channel was designed for me to have a platform where I could talk about my favorite board games. Board games that you can see over here and over here. One of my favorite board games is Star Wars Imperial Assault. I actually did a review of it a long time ago, and you can see the link in the description. But in Star Wars Imperial Assault, you played almost a dungeon crawling experience where you and four of your friends would go through various scenarios. It might be to sabotage a relay station, or it might be to rescue a diplomat, or it might be to kind of hunt down a bounty hunter. And you would get to play with all these cool characters. But the cool thing about it was you get to be almost your own character. There were a lot of nods and callbacks, or a lot of comparisons between kind of your established characters in the main Star Wars universe and also the ones that were in Imperial Assault. So here you can see a Jedi who's a Twi'lek. She's a Jedi outcast, but she has a lightsaber blade. And already, this is not a character that's appeared in any of the canon, but this is a character that you almost feel like you can resonate with because she is a Jedi, and you can get to play with a really cool little model of her. Or it can be like a Rhodian bounty hunter. Like, let's see if we can get a good shot of him here. That's really cool. Like, look, really cool model. And again, you go through this believable world, this world of in Star Wars. And it's actually a really, really fun game. And I do, again, highly recommend it. But you might be asking, why am I talking about this? Well, that's because I want to talk about Star Wars. I want to talk about my experience with Star Wars, where I've been having apprehension and not really been excited, where the problems have kind of come in. And then I want to go on as what I kind of hope will eventually come out of it. So if you are a Star Wars fan, hopefully you will appreciate this vlog. Maybe there's going to be some things that resonate with you. I appreciate anything. If you like the video, then of course leave a like. If you want to leave a comment, I'd love to hear from you guys what you think is basically the biggest problem with Star Wars. And again, just kind of keep it civilized. There are definitely some more, I think, underlying problems that might not necessarily be down to just the design or just the design of the movies. There might be some inherent flaws with the ownership of the Star Wars brand. But I don't think that's necessarily what is that's not the main problem with Star Wars at the moment. Again, I like Star Wars, love it. Again, it's the Imperial Assault. I have an ATST. It's awesome. I love this thing. It's so cool. And again, if you ever play Star Wars Imperial Assault, it's the best moment when you are the bad guy, you're controlling all the stormtroopers, your friends, as the rebels, burst down through one of the doors into a hangar, and all of a sudden the ATST is there. Or even better, they burst down the door, and all of a sudden you get to plop down a giant Rancor in front of them. That is a cool moment, and they are going to be terrified, and it's absolutely great. But yeah, Star Wars. So I started with Star Wars when I was 5 years old. I first saw the VHSs. Friday night, we had pizzas. We saw first Star Wars. I liked it. As a kid, I didn't really know much, but I did like it. I remember I liked it. I remember the second one I didn't like as much, the Empire Strikes Back. And that was because I thought it was like almost too depressing, where everyone like kind of lost and Luke wasn't happy. And again, as a 5-year-old, I didn't know any better. But I remember enjoying it. It wasn't hooked yet, but I remember I really enjoyed the Star Wars movies. And then, being 10 years old, 10 years old, The Phantom Menace came out. I think it was like early 2000, because I remember we're in South Africa, so everything came out a bit later on. But we went to go see the movie, The Phantom Menace, and I loved it. Everything about it as a child, as a 10-year-old child, was amazing. The pod races felt absolutely incredible and exhilarating. My favorite moment was actually the Gungan battle scene, where I got to see these weird alien creatures fight against these silly droids. and they lob these balls of energy. I love the shield generators. That was the coolest like effect, where they on the battlefield and all of a sudden this kind of shield comes down in front of them, and it's almost impenetrable for the droid army. It's absolutely great. I really do enjoy the Phantom Menace. I think it's actually a really fun film. But that kind of got me excited. Like that was like my first real childhood experience, experiencing Star Wars almost for the first time in that kind of regard, and it kind of started my growth in the Star Wars fandom. And then the second one came out, the second prequel, and I didn't like it that much. I think I was like 11 at the time. There was just a bit too much romance. It was just icky. Didn't really sit well with me. That being said, the end of it is so cool. When the clone troopers start descending down in the LASTs, I think that's what the gunship is called. Again, just really cool moments, really like rewarding moments as a Star Wars fan. You're just like, oh, that's the clone army. It's what Obi-Wan Kenobi referred to. Again, just cool moments. But that was still like I was. As a child, I liked Star Wars. I really enjoyed watching the movies. I wasn't, again, still a fan, wasn't fully absorbed. What got me absorbed was over time, I started playing the Star Wars video games. It started out with Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, which was a clone of Age of Empires with a Star Wars skin. But it was really cool. You could play with 6 factions. You could play the Rebel Alliance. You could play as the Gungans. You could play as the Naboo. You could play as the Trade Federation. You could play as Wookiees and the Galactic Empire. And then they brought an expansion which allowed you to play with the Separatists and the Republic. And that was so cool. I really liked the fact that I can now take these Gungans, which I really liked the army of, and make my own Gungan base in Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds. I thought that was so cool, right? And the fact that the ships were the bongos and they could go in the water. Again, it kind of embedded me into the Star Wars universe. One of the biggest things I liked about it, and it's the same thing that Age of Empires does, is you could actually you could go click a history tab, and it would give you a small story about what was that civilization or what was the reason for that kind of vehicle. And I thought that was so cool. And then, of course, you had things like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Again, this is not the Old Republic. This is no connection to any of the movies. This is like 1,000 years in the past. But the way they managed to match and still show connections and designs between 1,000 years ago and the actual movies was incredible. If you took a look at the astromech in Knights of the Old Republic, you could see like that looks like an RT unit, just an older RT unit, and that's fantastic. I absolutely love that. And of course, the stories they told were thoroughly engrossing. Even though most people like Knights of the Old Republic 1 because of Darth Revan, and I think it's a stronger story in general, I love the concept of Kreia in Knights of the Old Republic 2, the idea of a manipulator and one that always must betray. I love that. I thought she was almost the coolest character, and she was like a gray Jedi, but wasn't a gray Jedi because she was both Jedi and Sith, and it was just it was the way they explored the concept more. I love the fact in Knights of the Old Republic they talked about Jedi Sentinels, these yellow lightsaber wielding people who are more of these kind of sneaking around and not really getting into the face of things. I like the fact you had Force Consulars, or Jedi Consulars, who, like Master Yoda, who rely more on Force powers than brute strength. Or you had Jedi Guardians, who wield the blue lightsaber, and were more this powerful and more proficient in their weapon mastery. I liked they went into that detail. It stuck with me so well. Because of it. And then afterwards, there was the Jedi Knight series with Kyle Katarn, but also you had Jedi Academy. And Jedi Academy was great because, again, you could play your own character. You played this Jedi novice, this Jedi initiate. But you could be a Twi'lek, you could be a Kaldarai, you could be a Rodian, you could be a Zabrik, and you could kind of customize your character, and that was so cool. And you could do all these cool Star Wars tricks, all these kind of force tricks that you saw in the movies, like running up walls, or you could do cool backflips of cartwheels, or if you could choose what lightsaber you wanted to wield, you could do like a double-layered lightsaber, and you could actually do all the tricks that Darth Maul did. And that was so cool. It really felt like you were part of the Star Wars universe. I loved it, and that's why I became a huge fan, because of all of those video games. And now we have not much. Let me take a sip. Yeah. So you now have Disney. Star Wars hasn't been bad on Disney. It could have been a lot better. It could have been worse. But it hasn't been good. I think a large problem stems from the fact that I am a gamer. I like to play video games. I like to play board games. Fantasy Flight Games, the people who do the board games, like Star Wars Armada, Star Wars Legion, Star Wars Imperial Assault, Star Wars Destiny, Star Wars X-Wing, Star Wars Outer Rim, Star Wars Rebellion, all really good games. Like, they've really taken the time to make excellent games in the Star Wars universe. And I do have to give them huge credit for that. If you're ever interested in a board game, please go check out Fantasy Flight Games for their Star Wars collection. On the board game side, really happy. Like, this, just brilliant. However, video game side, that really is trash. That really is trash. You've had close to 7 years already. 7 years since 2012 to design good and meaningful Star Wars games. And the best they've come up with is a mobile game which, again, Star Wars is for children. It is a fantasy adventure in a sci-fi universe. It is for children, for a large part. Everything EA has done is predatory and is dishonorable and frankly quite alarming to children. Battlefield 1 was garbage. It had nothing in it. Battlefield 2 really looked like it was all just about the money and nothing about the passion of making a Star Wars universe. If you compare the BioWare, the people who made Knights of the Old Republic, the people who made BioWare now, to the ones that made Knights of the Old Republic, there's a huge difference in mindset, because the people who made Knights of the Old Republic were excited to have the Star Wars brand, the Star Wars licensing. EA is just purely money, and it really is disheartening to see nothing of substance comes out. Here's the thing, imagine this. If you have ever played Pillars of Eternity, done by Obsidian, it is this wonderful role-playing game. It's isometric top-down. You control a party of about 5 people, and you go on this quest to save a world. It's in this magical land, and it's a fairly stock-standard fantasy role-playing game. Take that and layer a Star Wars skin, Star Wars universe over it. You could have something magical come alive, but you don't. Instead, you get games that aren't even as good as what they were previously designed on. So, unfortunately, in the video game department, it really looks bad for Star Wars. And even Last Fallen Jedi, Last Order. Here's the thing. Last Jedi or Fallen Order, I think it's Fallen Order, isn't it? The director for Fallen Order went on and said the reason why they have a human character is because people react poorly to having an alien instead. Again, I'm contextualizing, it's not his exact quote, but that's essentially what he says, because people are, again, Humans are natural. We want to see connections. We know what a human looks like, therefore we can see what a human looks like on screen, and therefore we make the immediate connection. Understandable. My argument to that is, have you played Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy? You could play as a Twi'lek, you could play as a Kaldorai, you could play as a Rodian. Even in the Star Wars MMO, The Old Republic, you could choose to be multiple alien races, and you had a story that accompanied them, and people liked that. It's one of the good things about that MMO. Okay, enough about the video games. Let's talk about the movies. The movies suffer from a lot of things. They're not bad. Okay, let's be fair. The Last Jedi, bad. Force Awakens, okay. But it's not Star Wars. It doesn't feel like Star Wars. Why? Because I never feel like I'm caring about anyone in the sequels. No one is giving me a reason to care about them. And this stems from a lot of places. If we take a look at The Force Awakens, it doesn't help the fact that it feels like Star Wars, but it's not really Star Wars. And the reason why is because you still have X-Wings, you still have TIE fighters. It doesn't feel like there's been a design progression in the universe. It doesn't feel like a meaningful transition. From the prequels, The Phantom Menace, and the Clone Wars, you had ARCs. You have ARCs being flown by clone troopers that look like pre-evolution X-Wings. You have Jedi starfighters that look like original A-Wings. You have droid fighters that looked and shaped like TIE fighters in the previous design. And then you move on, you can see the evolution. You have the Venerator Star-class destroyer, which, again, you can see the design progression. Star Wars, the new sequels, you don't have that. You still have X-Wings, you still have TIE fighters. It feels like they're being safe with their designs because they want for people to be like, oh, look, I can see that that's the same thing. But at the same time, as a Star Wars fan, you're like, cool, but I've seen X-Wings for 3 movies. I don't need to see them again. I want to see something different. I want to see that evolution. I want to see a new design. In Star Wars Rebels, for example, you have one of the episodes, well, you have 2 key episodes that stand out for me. In one of the episodes, they showed I think it's the Z-Wing prototype that Hera gets to fly, and you're like, oh my god, it's a ship that gets flown in the Return of the Jedi in the final battle sequence. You're like, oh, that's so cool. You're rewarding the fans there, and that's clever. In Star Wars Rebels, you have ships that Leia steals or gets to steal, and these are corvettes that come from Knights of the Old Republic. They're corvettes, the corvette designs that come from Knights of the Old Republic, and you're like, oh, I know that ship. I played the video game. That's so cool. And then what's even better, and absolute credit, in Rogue One, you have that same ship that gets used as a battering ram. Can you see my excitement when I'm telling you this? That's those connections that absolutely make Star Wars brilliant, because you're rewarding fans who know that kind of stuff. There's a difference, there's almost like 3 layers to it. You have the subtextual layers where you're like, oh, like, for example, in Solo, the chessboard gets damaged and you see the 2 pieces get visibly removed. And you're like, oh, that's the reason why those chess pieces aren't in A New Hope. That's like the first layer. That's like for people who really like Star Wars, but like it's so sub-level that it almost doesn't feel rewarding. You can't go, ah! You can't have that ah moment. It's like, oh, that's clever. But it's not ah. The second level is those ah moments where you're like, oh my god, that's so, I know that, oh. So that's the connection. That's the connect. Your mind kind of explodes with like this excitement. The third level is on the nose stuff. So this is like you have Jango Fett in the Clone Wars, who makes the clones. You're like, oh, that's quite cool. That's the bounty hunter Boba Fett's father. He made the clones. That's cool, right? That's like the first level, because it's instant connection. You immediately notice, and you don't get as much excitement, but you still get satisfaction for that. Star Wars, the new Star Wars movies, don't really do any of those connections. And that's what's really depressing. They don't utilize connections in a way that feels fun or believable, or even makes you want to be excited for it. A good example of these is things like Poe Dameron. Poe Dameron's a really cool character. Oscar Isaac plays him really well, and I do like the character. This kind of hotshot rebel guy who was going to do anything for the resistance. Very cool. Here's the thing, though. Why call him Poe Dameron? Why not call him Poe Antilles? Antilles comes from Wedge Antilles, was the person who was responsible, or was at least part of both flights that destroyed both of the Death Stars. He was the main instrument in destroying the second Death Star, because he was the one, I think, fired the torpedoes and blew the second Death Star up. And he was basically hailed as the best goddamn pilot in the rebellion. Would it not be a cool callback that Poe is connected to Wedge Antilles? Why did we not see Wedge Antilles in any of the sequel movies? He would have still been around. If he was the general talking about the new Death Star or the new Starkiller base, that might have been a really cool moment for Star Wars fans. In the same line, Admiral Holdo, who, regardless of what anyone says, remove any of the internet discussions from that character. Admiral Holdo acts as an antagonist in your film. No one likes an antagonist. That's the whole point of the antagonist. They're stopping your protagonists, your heroes, from doing cool stuff and being successful. Basic storytelling narrative. When she sacrifices herself, visually cool moment, absolutely brilliant. Star Wars The Last Jedi has some of the best visual moments in the entire series. I'm not going to lie there. However, that moment, cool. It happened. I mean, really cool moment, but don't like the characters, so why I lose the emotional impact. Visual appreciation, yes. Visually cool. Emotional impact is not there because I don't like the character, because she's been hurting our heroes. So why should I like the character? Here's the thing, though, and you've seen this online already. That could have been Admiral Akbar. Admiral Akbar, the people that know, is the iconic, that's a trap again. That's a trap guy. He was the one who led the fleet for the destruction of the second Death Star. We all like him. He's all really cool. There's a reason why they chose weird aliens instead of humans, because they wanted to make it feel like it's a Star Wars universe. It's a world of differences. Imagine that was Admiral Akbar that did that act. Imagine it was Admiral Akbar who was not telling Poe about his plan. That would make a much more interesting story, because all of a sudden you want to know, why is he doing that? This is a character that you know. This is a character that you know is part of the rebellion, is now part of the resistance. He is a good person and has worked a lot with the rebellion. So why is he not telling us everything? Your mind gets confused and convoluted, but at the same time, that payoff at the end, you're like, that's a perfect send-off. That feels so cool for that to happen, because that takes a character that you love and a character that you've seen growth in. Admiral Holdo doesn't grow as a character. It doesn't change as a character. It stays the same. So really, a lot of the sequels are doing this thing where they're not taking what they could take. They're not playing off fan favorites, right? If you look at the extended universe stuff, You have characters like Mara Jade and Kyle Katarn, two beloved fan favorites, who could actually have done some use in the sequels, and people would have been thrilled. People would have been so happy to see these characters return, but instead you get things that people don't know. And again, this plays on the fact that these become movies and stories that people don't care about because it doesn't feel like anyone we care about is involved in these stories. Han and you can kind of see they kind of dug themselves into a major hole with having basically all your three main characters from the main trilogy are now all dead. R.I.P. Carrie Fisher. So you haven't had movies that establish these new characters as characters we should care about. That is one of the interesting things about the prequels. You care about Anakin Skywalker because you become Darth Vader. You care about Padme because such a wonderful character. Keira Knightley did such a good... Wait, is it Keira Knightley? Please tell me it's Keira Knightley. Keira Knightley did such a good job as portraying this character. This kind of queen, this regal queen, but also she feels so grounded. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi being played by Ewan McGregor, absolutely fantastic. You loved him. He portrayed that character so well. But again, these were all characters we knew about. These were all characters that had some connection to the trilogy. And you want to see their growth and you want to see what happens to them. Unfortunately, for the sequels, you just don't have that. Finally, you have the problem where these sequels aren't being made by fans. George Lucas did the prequels. He likes Star Wars, or he did like Star Wars. I think he still likes Star Wars. I like to think he does. But he likes Star Wars and he wanted to see the world grow. All of his connections, things like building a lightsaber, things like the Clone Wars, all of his callbacks from the main trilogy, he put into those prequels and he made the world come alive. And I don't think anyone can fault him for that. And that was a fan of Star Wars making Star Wars more, giving us more what the Star Wars world should be. The Star Wars sequels haven't been done by fans. No one sat down and been like, you know what, as a fan, would you like to see that happen? As a fan of the movies, would you like to see all that stuff happen? A lot of the stuff you'd be like, no, I don't know. I don't need to see that kind of stuff. I don't want that stuff to happen. That's a bit of a shame, isn't it? Again, compare. I feel sorry. I really feel sorry for Dave Filoni because Dave Filoni, you can see, is a fan of Star Wars. And he knows, he's very clever in knowing what the fans want. And Star Wars Rebels gives you just enough of those callbacks. You have Admiral Thrawn who shows up. You have Admiral Wolf, from the boardroom scene in A New Hope. He shows up at some point. You have Ahsoka Tano, who's a staple character from the Clone Wars animations, show up. But Dave Filoni knows what to give the Star Wars fans. These sequels feel like they're not being made for the people that are going to pay money for them. They're not being made for the Star Wars fans who are guaranteed money. They're trying to be made for a much larger audience. And by doing that, you almost are diminishing your fan base. Here's the thing, the person that goes and sees the sequels as a normal person is going to be like, oh, cool, the sequels to Star Wars, that's cool. Right? That's the main idea of it. They're not going to become fans, though. And because they don't become fans, they're not going to be buying the Star Wars merchandising, the Star Wars toys. You have a massive reduction in toy sales because of it. And there's a larger amount of your income now gone because you try to cater for what your fans aren't. And that's becoming a problem. Again, the movies aren't bad. They just suffer from not been stories you want to particularly care about in the Star Wars universe. And it does show. However, the new teaser trailer for the final movie looks good. You have Emperor Palpatine coming back. Great. You have Lando Calrissian coming back. Great. Looks to be some cool setups. Perfectly fine. There's potential there, and I think maybe Lucasfilm has finally realized of what they should be doing correctly. These are kind of my hopes for how I think the movie franchise might end. So here's the things. Firstly, I'm hoping Rey gets a double-bladed lightsaber. And I'm hoping it's purple. The main reason why is we talk a lot about poetry. We talk a lot about symbolism in the Star Wars universe and the circular nature of events that happens. Every person has kind of lost their hand in some regard, right? That's a moment in Star Wars that feels significant because it's been done before. The double-sided lightsaber is a fantastic callback to Darth Maul in the first movie. That's a 9-movie difference, between seeing those two lightsabers together. And for Daisy Ridley and Rey to use a double-sided lightsaber, that seems really cool. It also plays on the fact that she's used the staff for a lot of A Force Awakens, that she knows how to use the staff, so it makes sense for her to use a double-sided lightsaber. Also, it makes the choreography between her and the broadsword of Kylo Ren's seem a lot cooler because it's a staff. So I think if she gets that, I'll be really happy. I think it's a crying shame that we've only seen blue and red lightsabers in the sequel so far. It's boring. It actually is quite boring. Where you have the prequels and you have Mace Windu with his purple lightsaber, you're like, yeah, even though Mace Windu wanted that, Samuel L. Jackson wanted to have a different lightsaber, you're still like, that was cool, that's cool, I want a different lightsaber, I like all these lightsaber colors. And that encouraged all these different colored lightsabers. Let's have more of that, right? Let's have hers be a purple or a yellow lightsaber. Why? Because it's cool. Gives people cool moments. Second, I'm hoping Rey is somebody. Again, Rian Johnson, yeah, not good stuff. But I'm hoping, and I think this is probably what's going to happen. I think Rey is either a cloning experiment of Palpatine, and that's a nice callback to things like Starkiller from Force Unleashed. There's also a nice callback to the Extended Universe comics where Palpatine actually comes back and is a clone. And I think for Rey to be a clone of Palpatine makes a lot of sense in the storyline. At least makes more sense and can be better justified in the fact that she said her parents are nobody. Most people assume that her parents were nobody, as in no one important. They were nobodies. But I think maybe it could be a play on words where it could be her parents were nobody, as in she didn't have any parents. Nobodies. That might be really cool. And also then you have the mirror scene in The Last Jedi where she sees copies of herself. That makes a lot of sense for her to be a clone. It also makes more sense for her to be then why she's so strong with the Force, because she is a clone of a very powerful Force wielder, right? And then it could have been, you could then justify it a bit more, like that's the reason why Palpatine's now back, I feel like you can play a lot with that idea, and I feel like it would be, I think Star Wars fans would be very happy with that turn of events. It kind of justifies everything. It makes things, it could even be like Snoke. It kind of makes a connection to then Snoke, because maybe Snoke was the reason why the cloning failed. There's some examples. Another thing I'm hoping is really I don't want any more super weapons. I don't want Death Star 4. Because at that point, you're just kind of being silly. And also, like, all the prequels never had a goddamn Death Star. They never had a super weapon. They relied on other things to be spectacle. The third movie has a grandiose space battle at the start of the movie. That is so bold to do. The second movie, The Clone Wars, the movie ends with a lightsaber duel, but also these clone troopers barging down and taking control of Geonosis and destroying the droids, and there's a whole battlefield happening. That's really cool moments, but it's not a super weapon that's endangering everyone. It feels, unfortunately, this feels overused for them to do the super weapon again, and I don't think they need to do that. Really, what you have to have, I think in the end, is have a space battle between the Resistance and the First Order. Like, make that your cool epic space battle, have the Star Wars duel, and again, this ties back. Have it tie back to your previous films. The Force Awakens did that, but it did that almost too on the nose. Whereas I feel like with The Last Jedi, or not The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, you can play around with having an epic moment that doesn't involve a super weapon. That isn't like, oh, we need to destroy this, else the whole world is doomed. No, your super weapon is Emperor Palpatine. Have that instead and play on that. I think the last thing I want is to see Kylo Ren die. This is a big thing. Is, as Disney has said, the Star Wars anthology now is the Skywalker saga. It is about the Skywalkers. At the moment, the last Skywalker is Kylo. So naturally, if you want the saga to end, you gotta kill off the dude. And frankly, I wouldn't mind. The guy's not a cool guy anyway. He's not fun to be around. He's like Darth Vader, but Darth Vader never really did bad stuff. He did bad stuff, don't get me wrong. Darth Vader's a very terrible person. But you never had a moment of like, this is not a nice guy. Or this was like, you could see that he could be redeemed. Kylo Ren basically killed his father in front of your eyes, and he killed a guy you really liked, Han Solo. You don't get a way of redeeming that thing. Even if he's being mind controlled or something like that, you don't get a way to redeem that. Kill the guy off, end the Star Wars saga, have a good send-off, and you'll be sorted. And that's really what I want from the last film. My biggest takeaways is the sequels are safe. They're too safe. They don't take enough risks, and they're not rewarding to what fans of the movies and what fans of the Star Wars universe want. They're trying to do things too similar to other films like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's not working for them because it's a different IP, it's a different license, it's different fans. There's potential to recover. There's potential to reward fans. And I think they can be very close to that. I just want a reason to care about these characters. And at the moment, they haven't delivered on any of that. But that being said, the last movie can change everything. So, as a Star Wars fan, I'm still hoping I like Star Wars come 2020. Because for me, it's been a huge part of my life since I was 5 years old. And it would be a real shame if the last moments of Star Wars is 3 terrible films, 2 crappy video games, and all I have to keep me happy is a Rancor miniature. So yeah. Again, my name has been Epic Bubble, also known as Simon. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I apologize if it was too long, but I hopefully just want to give my thoughts out there. And again, I hope you appreciate it. I think, you can look forward to Star Wars. There's still a lot of potential, and I think if Disney's clever, they can really use the brand in a good way. I think they're just being a bit too scared because they paid so much money for it, unfortunately. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, remember to hit the like button. Don't worry about subscribing because I'm probably not going to put out more of this kind of stuff. But yeah, feel free to also share this video. Maybe it's giving you some ideas, or just start talking about it more. Hopefully we can get some excitement going for the Rise of Skywalker. And hopefully we'll get a trailer for it soon. But yeah, anyway, Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.